Alright, so in continuation of my TMNT reviews, they have led me here to the 2007 animated release. So I just want to preface this review by saying that there have been many forms of, TMNT media that I've grown up with. This movie is one of them. The 2003 animated series as well, also the game to this movie, and a bunch of others like the 2012 Nickelodeon run. So I've grown up on quite a bit of, Ninja Turtles media around this time period of my life. And I cannot tell you just how many scenes and shots in this movie are actually seared into my brain. Firstly, I want to talk about the voice cast for this movie, who has some pretty A-list actors voicing the characters in this movie. First of all, we have Lawrence Fishburne being the narrator in the opening sequence of this movie. He doesn't pop up in the movie at all as an actual character, he's just the narrator. It is a bit of a strange choice, but I'm glad to hear him in here. Also, we have Patrick Stewart playing, the bad guy of this movie. Yeah, who would have thought that Professor X would have been in a Ninja Turtles movie, let alone an animated Ninja Turtles movie. Also, Captain America is in here, that's right. Chris Evans plays Casey Jones, and he actually does a pretty good job as Casey Jones. I really like his voice as Casey Jones in this movie. We also have Nolan North as Raphael, and let me just tell you, he is perfect in this role. Perfect! He's perfect as Raphael, that's all I can say. Now, in regards to the story for this one, it's pretty much your standard, Ninja Turtle story. There's a supernatural threat of some kind that the Turtles have to team up and fight against. The bad guy, as I mentioned, that Patrick Stewart plays in the movie, is trying to round up all these monsters that was unleashed thousands of years ago with his generals or his soldiers or whatever that are cursed stone people. It sounds even more ridiculous coming out of my mouth, but there are scenes involving these stone generals that I remember so much as a kid, like when they're all chasing after the monsters through the sewers, through the subway. But there is one scene that has always stuck out in my mind, and it actually has nothing to do with them. What it is the scene where actually, let me go back a bit because I need to explain more of the story. So Leonardo went on a trip to Latin America, I'm pretty sure. And this was something he was doing because Master Splinter sent him away for training to become a better leader, blah, 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 blah. But in his absence, the Turtles have sort of grown apart, I guess. They've split. Donnie has a job, Mikey has a job, and Raphael has been pretty much the Batman. And it's Raphael's part of the story that leads to one of the most confrontational scenes in this movie. And dare I say, one of the best confrontations in Ninja Turtles media that I've seen between Raph and Leo, in front of this huge red billboard, basically. It's very dim, dark, it's raining. It's just a great scene, and it very clearly shows the difference between Raphael and Leo in that it shows Raph's anger and his inability to control his rage. But it also shows what doesn't really get explored too well is Leo's pride. Now, Leo is, of course, the leader, and some would argue that he's the better fighter, but that's a whole other thing. Leo does have a bit of an ego. He is the leader, and that can sometimes get to him. And for me, this scene shows that very clear and very well, I might say. And then after they're done fighting, Raph just, sort of snaps out of his anger, runs off in, shock. I don't know, man. I know this movie, didn't get the best reviews and not everyone loved it, but for me personally, this is one of my favorite TMNT media, show or film ever. And yes, a lot of it does have to do with that confrontation between Leo and Raph. But in general, it's just a really fun movie. In my opinion, it's not too short, but it's also not too long either. It's perfect. However, it does have some issues, which I will admit. One of them being that the movie tends to cut away from characters or a location, and then when it cuts back to that same character in that same location, everything has completely changed. The biggest example of this that comes to my mind is that moment where Casey and the Turtles infiltrate the tower of the bad guy, and when we cut away from Casey, he's at the gate talking to Karai with the big turtle helmet thing on. When we cut back to Casey, they're all of a sudden fighting this huge army of foot. I understand that, I can assume that this and this happened to get to this point, but it doesn't, it's just such a strange cut. It's a strange edit. Another thing too, which isn't really an actual flaw with the film, it's more of just me pondering where this film takes place. So when I was a kid, I was heavy into the online chatter about this movie, and whether or not it actually took place after the trilogy, the live action films from the 90s. There is evidence in this movie to suggest that this could be the fourth one to that trilogy. However, it hasn't been confirmed, at least to my knowledge. Also, their lair also looks very similar to their lair from the 2003 animated show, and the turtles themselves also resemble those same turtles a bit more than the actual live action version of the Turtles. Also, Splinter does not look like the same Splinter as the Splinter from the live action show. He looks like the same Splinter from the 2007 or 2003 animated show. If you look at Splinter in the very last season and you compare his design to what he looks like in this movie, they look very similar. The best conclusion that I can come to is that this movie is just a standalone movie that has Easter eggs to other forms of TMNT media. Anyway guys, that is my review for the 2007 animated release of TMNT. Personally, I love this movie and I don't care what anyone says. I don't care if you think this movie is garbage or the worst TMNT movie ever made. Personally, it's one of my favorites and I love it. I will see you in my review for the next TMNT movie, which is the one I actually hate. I'll see you in that review. And this movie, so also we have Patrick Stewart, that's his name, yeah. What else? Oh my god, Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Pretty much the same, oh, hold on. And it very,